All right. We are going to talk about linear relationships and how we can use the point-intercept form to write the equation of a line given just a few different pieces of information. Before we look at this first problem, we are going to review what slope-intercept form looks like. This should look familiar to you. We have y equals mx plus b. And in this equation, m is our slope, and b is our y-intercept. So we're going to be referring back to those two terms as we go through this information and through these examples. One other thing we want to review is slope is our change in y over our change in x. So our vertical change over our horizontal change. So those are the things that we need to be thinking about as we look at this first example. I'm just going to make this a little bit smaller. And move it off to the side over here. All right, so it says to find the equation of the line that passes through the point 2, 11 and has a y-intercept of 7. So, just to review our coordinate points, the first number is our x value and the second number is our y value. So we know kind of a lot about this linear relationship, knowing just those two things. So we're going to start by writing out y equals mx plus b. Now, we learned a few things. First of all, we learned that the y-intercept in this example is 7. So I'm actually going to replace that b with a 7. And it is positive 7 because it didn't tell us it was negative, so we are going to do a plus 7 here. Now, it didn't actually tell us the slope. If it did, it would have been really easy for us to figure out this equation, but it did tell us an x value and a y value. So, I know that the x value is 2. And I know that the y value is 11 at that point. So, I have this equation, 11 equals m times 2 plus 7. So really the only thing I'm missing in this situation is the value of the slope. But now I can solve for this variable. So I'm going to treat this like any other equation that I solve, and I'm going to start doing my legal moves to simplify. And I know that I need to get that m alone, so I'm going to start by getting rid of the 7. And if I take 7 away from one side, I have to take it away from the other, and I'm left with 4 equals m times 2. Now, I want the m alone, so in order to undo multiplying by 2, I'm going to divide by 2, and whatever I do to one side, I must do to the other. And 4 divided by 2 is 2, and m divided by 2 is m times 2 divided by 2 is m. So m has to equal 2, which means our slope is 2. So the equation of this line is y equals our slope of 2 times, not m, times x plus 7. We were given the y-intercept and we had to use that point to solve for the slope. All right, let's do another example. In this example, it says, find the equation of the line that passes through the points -3, 21, and 4, 0. So in this situation, we weren't actually given a slope. We weren't given the y-intercept. Now remember, the y-intercept is the point, or we can even refer to it as the y value when x is 0. And in this case, we have our x-intercept because we have the point where y is 0, but that doesn't really count. So we are going to find the slope a different way. The first thing I'm going to do is look at my 2 points. My first numbers are my two x values, and my second numbers, 21 and 0, those are my two y values. Now, we want to remember that slope is our change in y over our change in x. So the first point, our first value, went from 21 to 0. I'm looking at those two y values. Went from 21 to 0. So the change was that it went down 21. In our x values, and remember that slope is written as a fraction, right? So in our x values, we want to find our change in x. So it went from -3 to +4. So we want to figure out how far it went up, because we went from a negative to a positive. So it's going up by 7. So our slope is -21 over 7. Now, I can simplify that. I know that both of these numbers are divisible by 7. 21 divided by 7 is 3. 7 divided by 7 is 1. So my slope is actually -3. I don't want to forget that value right there. It is -3. So that is my slope. Now, let me make this a little bit smaller. This is our slope. All right, so now that I know the slope, remember I'm going to use that form y equals mx plus b, and I'm going to fill in the things that I know to figure out what I'm missing. And since I have my slope, I'm going to fill in that m, and what I'm really looking for is b. I'm looking for my y-intercept. So now I can pick any one of these points to fill in. And honestly, I think that this point with the smaller numbers and one of them being 0 is actually going to be the easiest for me to use to solve. So I know that my slope is -3. My x value, that first number in this case, is a 4. I don't know b, but I do know that my y value is 0. So I know that I'm going to need to solve for b, but the first thing I need to do is simplify a little. I'm going to do this multiplication here. So I have -3 times 4. That would be -12. So -12 plus b is equal to 0. So I can keep going and solving and using my legal moves. I want to get rid of those 12 negatives to get the b alone. So in order to do that, I need to add 12 to both sides, and I get 12 equals b. My y-intercept is b. So my equation, My slope I found out was -3. And my y-intercept is +12. So the equation of this line is y equals -3x plus 12. So we're always thinking about what do we know, what information did they give us, what are we trying to find out in order to find m and b. So there's my equation. We'll do one more example. Find the equation of the line that decreases by 1 and goes through 3, -7. Ooh, so this one tells us that our linear relationship is decreasing by 1. This is our slope. So really nice that they actually gave us the slope in this problem. So we can start by writing that equation, y equals mx plus b. Now, we know slope, so we know m. I'm going to put a 1. And since it's decreasing, I'm going to do -1. And now we're looking for our y-intercept. I'm going to use this point right here, that 3, -7. Now remember, x is the first number, y is the second. So, rewriting this again, my y value is -7. Slope is -1. It looks like a 7, so sorry. Slope is -1. X is +3. And we are looking again for our y-intercept. So I'm going to solve this like an equation. And the first thing I'm going to do is I am going to multiply. So -1 times 3 is -3. So on this side, on the right side, I'm left with -3 plus b equals -7. My goal is still to get b by itself. So I'm going to get rid of the -3 by adding 3 to both sides. I am left with -4 equals b. So I know my slope and I know my y-intercept. My y-intercept is -4. So my equation is y equals -1x minus 4. So those are a few examples of how you can use a couple different pieces of information like points on the line, the slope and a point, or even the y-intercept and a point to find and write the equation of that linear relationship. Hope it helps.